Okay, I'm going to try to make this quick. Hopefully it's quick because I'm going based off of a hunch feeling that I'm getting by the way that it sounds. Tonight we will be working on this, I think it's a 2010 BMW 528, and it doesn't start, run, or anything. It does crank, but that's about it. So I'll bring you along. Hopefully it's a quick, short one. It's late. I'm outside. I think this is the first time I've had to bring my car all the way out, but I don't want to mess with bringing it in if ultimately I think it's going to be what it's going to be. So let's get set up and do some testing. First things first, I'll show you some codes. Nothing crazy that jumps out. Again, it cranks but doesn't start. Obviously, I looked at it already off camera. In the engine computer, BSD, which again, that's going to be a single wire bus that controls water pump, alternator, battery sensor, so on and so forth. But it won't keep it from cranking. I do have a video presentation, whatever, that the BSD portion that was related with the battery sensor that was taking out the wake-up signal was keeping the car from starting, but that one would not even crank at all. This one I do get a crank, but even the way it cranks, it stops itself. Now this is an older, it's an N52 with the Valvetronics, but not typically the Valvetronics system that will keep a vehicle from starting and running like an N20, N55. Basically the later generation Valvetronic. This one cranks and stops, and let's show you the symptom then. Maybe I'll keep you out here so you can listen. Obviously, it cranks and stops. Now, I think the one clue, this is just that I happen to pick up, and hopefully, I don't know if the camera will, but listen to when it stops cranking. Maybe the camera will pick up here. So I'll go ahead. Real hard to show and pick up on camera, but it's like a buzzing noise. As soon as the engine cuts off, there's like a buzzing noise from the speakers, and that is what made me start thinking. So as far as the customer's story goes, is supposedly it was running, idling at his house, left it running outside. He went inside to do some stuff, came out, the car was stalled out and dead. He tried to get it started, and I'm not sure if he did get it started. I think he did, let it run, and same thing, it died. So something to the extent of it ran, stalled, and now this is the situation that we've got. Initially, I was thinking we were going to be dealing with crazy electrical funky stuff, but I'm switching my mindset and I'm going to bring you along. I'm going to set up for a relative compression and see what that looks like. Okay, scope is running, synced off ignition 1, and the starter current draw. Crank it, see what that looks like. Okay, there are the 3 cranking events. Let's take a look at them. And obviously, blue is going to be the starter current draw. Red is going to be ignition. And you can see ignition happening here. And you've got hump, 1, 2, 3, 4. But look right here, 1, 2, 3. It's like hidden humps, let's call them. And obviously, this is where we start to hit. And so let's call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or the fifth big one. Move to the second cranking event. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, same pattern. The hidden humps, let's call it. Ignition happening here on the fifth one. And just like the others, same exact thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hidden humps, ignition here. Now, I find it odd and strange that number one hits on that same compression, let's call it, each and every single time. You would think that that number one hit would change. But what we do know is when that number one hit happens, apparently, the engine cuts off or the cranking cuts off. So something's going on. And because of seeing this stop and cut off when ignition looks to be happening, my mindset is going towards, let me unplug all the coils, see if we can get it to stop stopping, and if we can get continuous cranking. Okay, I think I've got them off all the way enough. Let's see what happens. Okay. So that hypothesis worked. Let's look at these humps. Clearly have one there. There. That seems to be lower than the others. And there towards the end when I stopped cranking, of course, more started getting uneven. So continuously there's this one kind of lower one, and then this started happening. So maybe I'll crank for a whole lot more time. Let's go ahead and do that now. Again, I'll leave you focused on the scope. Okay. Let's stop it. Take a look. And I mean, it's not too terribly off or low. Okay, so not terrible looking, but the one thing we know is if we introduce and or have ignition, the motor, the engine, stops itself from continuously cranking. Okay, so clearly I've brought this now inside since it looks like we're going to be having some fun with it, especially after looking at what we saw last night. What I want to do now, this is just out of my curiosity. I think naturally, possibly, Next, I should go to cam crank waveforms, compare that since I do have known good for this N52. But because the only thing that we know right now is that the engine stops itself or it stops when ignition happens, I just out of curiosity want to know what all the other ones are doing up to that point, if any of those are hitting as well. Meaning, are we getting spark from any other cylinders during that short time of cranking when it stops itself? So I've got, again, the current draw there in all 6 coils. And so we are all set up on the scope. Okay. Oh, that was weird. I'll try one more. Okay. Okay, so here's that capture of the few cranking events. And let's see. Take a look here. And this one we only got 2 humps and then the red trace, which red trace is cylinder 1. Okay, here's some other cylinders prior to cylinder 1. Looks like 3 humps. We didn't build up the 4th. We're kind of building less humps than we were last night. But again, it stops with that number 1. This one's a weird one. You can see that. But again, it stops with number 1. This one looks like there's multiple ones. So 3 humps again, stops with number 1. You can see that. And let's see the last one. Kind of the same type of deal. So I think, again, now I'm just playing around. Since we always lose it with number 1, how about we try taking number 1 away? Let's see what that gives us. Be curious to see on this. So it runs. Okay, let me oh, wow. That's definitely interesting. I can tell you right now, this is something I've never, ever dealt with before. And so that's pretty crazy. I am almost wondering, actually, the red trace is creeping up there. How about we, let's see, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're missing 2. We know number 1 should be gone, but we're missing another one. Okay, I was gonna go out on a limb, throw a coil in there, but the fact that now looks like we got 2 missing Let me figure out firing order again and see which one's which and go from there. Okay, so quick update. Just before, checking firing order and any of that stuff, I checked my connections and started back up. And there is the one that was missing. So it looks like it was just a connection issue. And we truly only have cylinder 1 missing, which we know. So again, let me find a coil, see if this is all that it is. Alright, well guys, this was stuck in there. I had to get the screwdriver to pry it off, which I normally do to make it easy, but they'll pop right out. This one, I had to really tug on it, and clearly we are not in a good condition. There doesn't seem to be anything stuck down there. But that is a bad looking coil and hopefully a good sign for us here. Okay, so I've got a used one installed. I personally don't know if it's good. I know that I saved it. It was on top of my box. I don't know if I saved it because it was a known good or because it was a misfiring one and is good to have captures or for testing. So I guess we'll find out. Well, by the looks of me marking that, I bet it's one that was misfiring. So let's find out. Even if it was misfiring, it's probably not going to do what the other one was. So I looked down inside the boot. The spring's like curled up in it. So I don't even think it was contacting down on the plug. And I'm wondering, or betting that we were shooting a bunch of voltage that the computer didn't like. So let's go look. Well, we're running with a coil in there, and let's take a look, see if it's a misfiring coil. It's pretty crazy though. Let's stop this. Okay, so we have the red coming back up, and yeah, okay, looks like it is a bad coil. And actually, and this is how I look for beginning signs of early dying coils, even though they could be running and not fully misfiring. So take a look at this portion here. So this area here that kind of just slopes down. Look at this one. So how it reverberates right there, it oscillates. This is a good one there. The bad ones will just slope. If you look at this green one, that has a slope, but it fired. And this purple one, it's sloping, it's not oscillating, but it did fire some. And so let's see, this one does oscillate, and I think so does the gold one here. Yep, right there again. So that is how I actually look for bad coils or beginning signs of bad coils for basically preventive maintenance, because it can get expensive to throw 6 to 8 coils for no reason. So this is how I can look at them in detail and find out which ones are basically beginning to, or the signs that they will fail eventually, like this one did. But being I put this in here, and that it's labeled with that yellow dot, I bet I pulled it to save for basically, I guess, presenting or analyzing what it looks like. But it is currently a bad misfiring coil, but it is still able to not shock the DME, and the DME is now happy and it runs. So again, I believe, and that's pretty crazy, this I've not ever dealt with this. I was going towards a mechanical engine issue. Again, my gut last night was thinking something mechanical, but I could tell, and I mentioned about the buzzing noise. There was something to do with like a high, amperage type electric type of issue because of that buzzing. I was under the impression maybe 2-cylinder compression type deal and just drawing crazy amperage on the starter and shutting the start sequence down. But it looks like it's crazy high backfeed voltage to the DME where it shocked it and it just shuts off. And we clearly could see that. All right, so clearly you guys can see this one starts up, runs, and engine seems to be fine. No need to do any mechanical engine testing, at least for right now. Thing to do is get a good coil or possibly all good coils, and then finally start to see how the engine is, get it up to temperature, so on and so forth. Assuming it might be okay, but who knows. Main thing was towed here. It had gone to, I don't know if it went to actual shops or whatnot. I think he had people try to look at it or come to his house. One of the reasons why it actually did come here was a friend of mine who's getting into diagnostics, so on and so forth, was called to look at it, and he decided to basically refer him to me to see if I can figure something out. And so because of those chain of events, finally was led here, and we finally got it figured out. One thing I do want to kind of express was to explain that I basically saved myself from a big rabbit hole by just using some logic thinking. And after all testing and so on and so forth, and seeing that number one ignition coil, or when number one would fire, the engine would stop. Now, I actually probably never would have seen that if I would not have synced my relative compression. And actually, even starting to do or start with looking at relative compression, that was just an experienced hunch. Anytime I get kind of crazy, weird engine type of cranking or situation noise, I just go to a relative compression and I start there. And I always sync, and I always try to sync off number one. I know you can always sync off any, especially if number one's hard to get to, you can use an easy coil to get to, but I always try to do number one, and I got lucky that number one was the cause of it to stop. And then again, logical thinking, wanted to look at all the other coils, see what they were doing, verified still number one, and then further logical thinking was to leave all coils connected and just remove coil one, and then voila, that's where we can see we can finally get the engine running by eliminating what we saw was causing the engine from not cranking. Now again, I'm betting that it's just because these are what I call dumb coils. The driver and everything is in the DME. They are the high voltage ones that you can scope the primary, and so with that, the coil spring inside the coil not even contacting the spark plug, I'm betting it was just electrically on the DME, again, just crazy voltage situation occurring that it shut itself down. Now, normally, most of the time, I probably would dive further into the DME and try to just out of curiosity see what was going on with voltages and seeing what's happening. But I don't want to keep striking that DME with the voltage that it's not happy. And I don't want to create another situation, especially now that we got this running. We can tell the customer he's going to be happy. So I think I'm personally going to stop there with testing. Now we'll just go into getting the car running up and good. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was a first for me out of all my years with BMWs and all other cars. I've not ever dealt with this or experienced this. So I hope you thought it was cool. I know I did. So thank you for watching. We'll get this wrapped up and we'll just move on to the next one. We'll see you then.